I think the freaks are worried about me. I posted a link to Adam's song by Blink-182 this morning, and I think everybody thinks I'm depressed.
Yeah, are you all right?
I'm fine. I fell down a Blink-182 rabbit hole last night, and Adam's song is a very good song. It is about depression. I posted it because I know when I fall down these artist rabbit holes, I always find one song that I just keep playing on repeat, and that happened to be the Blink-182 song I was playing on repeat today.
Well, it was smart to actually post the link because when I rip the video and post the video into Twitter, they don't like that very much.
Yeah, don't hit play on this card. We'll get DMCA'd or whatever it is.
Is it DMCA'd? Yeah, I think that's
DCMA.
what it is. What does it stand for? Digital
Copyright.
Money.
DCMA.
Copyright. First freak to tell us what DMCA means in the comments gets 10,000 sats. Marty's going to pay you.
First question: how many Citadel Dispatch logos can we fit in one screen?
I think maybe I should have worn a different hat today.
Xfrog wins Digital Millennium Copyright Act.
Okay, well, your spelling is fucking horrible, but we appreciate it. Just post an invoice on the Twitter in response to the tweet. And Marty will hook you up.
Do we have to be technically correct here? I mean, should Kita win because he has the correct spelling?
I don't see Kita's response.
It's on the screen now.
Oh, I see it now. No, I think Xfrog gets it, but he has to learn how to spell millennium and copyright.
Xfrog, if you put that in the if you respond to the tweet of the show on Twitter, I'll play that live on air.
Well, I'm glad we put so much time into Matt's spontaneous raffle. See, freaks, that's why you want to get into the live stream early so that you have a chance of winning some sats, putting your kids through college.
He spelled it how Marty pronounces it. We all know I'm not good at pronouncing things, so yeah.
But what do you think about the Citadel flag, Marty? Have you seen this before?
Yeah, it was in the office when I was in the park.
Do you know we had a ride or die freak sent this to me completely unprovoked. I didn't ask for it or anything. He just sent it out appreciation.
Yeah,
you know him, Hank. Hank sent it to me.
Oh yeah, Hank is a supermensch. Hank is shout out to Hank. Hank and I have developed a tradition at the Bitcoin conference. He finds me every year and always has a very well thought out literal token of appreciation.
A true ride or die.
Yeah, I want to warn you freaks. I was up late last night writing the bent, and the 8-week-old decided to wake up at 4:30 and never went back to bed. So I'm going on like 4 hours of sleep and a bit tired.
Is he still up?
He's taken a few naps between now and then, but he might be up right now. I think they're down at the beach.
So we had some freaks complain about a mouse clicking noise. I hear it right now. I'm 99% sure from last week. I'm 99% sure it's like crickets because Marty's sitting outside.
There's birds in the tree right here. I changed the gain on this Yeti mic so that it like tries to pick up everything directly in front of it. So hopefully that mitigates the chirping.
I hear it.
Shut up over there.
What are you going to do?
It's a cardinal. I can see it right now. It's nature freaks. It's either that or you get the background of my in-laws' bed, which I think my father-in-law's taking a nap in right now. So unless you want
it'd be fucking hilarious if you were live from his bedroom while he was napping. That would be, I don't know. That would just be like a retire RHR moment. Like we fucking did it. We peaked. You just like walk away.
He just wakes up and is like, shut the fuck up. Uh, he's happy. Shout out to Ginger Hill Angus. Picked up my quarter beef yesterday. Filled the freezer in our garage down here. Father-in-law was very impressed. We cooked up a couple of ribeyes and a tenderloin last night.
What are they? North Carolina based?
North Virginia,
Virginia,
Washington, Virginia, I believe. High quality Angus beef.
So that's a 5 cubic quart freezer.
Yes. Which
and
is
that
interesting.
holds like a quarter perfectly.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah.
Quarter
It's
cow.
filled to the brim. It's interesting because I had a half cattle in Austin, and that's in a 7 cubic foot freezer, and that was filled to the brim. So 2
I
cubic
bought a
feet.
16. I bought a 16 cubic. It's cubic quart, right?
No, it's cubic feet. I'm pretty sure.
Oh, whatever. I don't know. I'm not a measurer, but I bought the 16 one. It's fucking massive.
You're gonna have to get a half cattle.
I have a
half
quarter
beef.
cow in there right now, and you can still like keep like 3 bodies in there.
That's what the comment from Keto was. 16 cubic feet is for bodies.
I see a bigger number and I buy it. It's similar to my Bitcoin strategy.
But I'm going to stay humble. You got to stay humble.
Okay, on to Clark Moody's dashboard.
We will get there. I've got to pull it up on my end here. Currently, according to Clark's dashboard, the price of Bitcoin is 22,575 cuck bucks. One cuck buck's going to get you 4,430 sats. We are block height 747,967. We had a difficulty adjustment earlier today, I believe it was earlier today. 31 blocks ago. We know that for sure. And that was a positive.
Yes, it was definitely earlier today.
Yeah, it was a upward adjustment of 1.7%. Blocks are coming in at 9 minutes and 50 seconds on average during that difficulty epoch. That broke the streak of 3 downward difficulty adjustments in a row. This is a bad estimate considering that we're only 31 blocks away from
Don't say it.
The adjustment that happened earlier today, so we won't say it.
There we go. Completely worthless number.
There are 9,685 transactions in Clark's mempool. Wow, Samurai Whirlpool unspent capacity. New all-time high by a considerable amount. They had a flood of liquidity into the unspent capacity of Whirlpool, currently sitting at 5,285.08 Bitcoin.
And if
or
you... Yep.
119.3 million in unspent value.
They have they put a discount code out for it. It's 5K winning. You get 50% off for the next 2 days. Coin join fees.
Yes. And if you go check TD Dev or Samurai Wild's Twitter page, they have instructions on how to take advantage of that discount code.
They call them S codes. It should be in the Whirlpool settings.
Yeah. So there we are. Crabbing a bit. Price is in consolidation mode here. Been hovering between 20 and 24,000 over the course of the last week. We got some big news this week. I mean, it's news. I don't know if it's good news, bad news, indifferent, but...
Well, you just said it was big news.
I mean, it's big news, and like you have 2 big companies. We're going to start with Coinbase and BlackRock, even though they're down further on the list. I thought they were at the top of the list from memory, but they're not. But we'll start there. So Coinbase partnered with BlackRock, and Coinbase is essentially going to be running the operations for BlackRock institutional investors to get exposure to Bitcoin. I believe it's Bitcoin only right now.
It doesn't read that way.
I've heard conflicting things about this.
Well, the blog post makes it seem like they have access to all their great shitcoin products.
Yeah, Coinbase Prime is the leading institutional prime broker platform for crypto assets. Yeah, so it's probably more
No,
than just
starting with Bitcoin. I see. Starting with Bitcoin.
okay.
Wow, that's surprising.
Start with Bitcoin, and yeah, so this is an alliance birthed in hell. You got Coinbase, the company that seems hell bent on exposing its customers to terrible shitcoins. On top of that, spying on their customers and working with government agencies like ICE and the IRS to hand over data. They acquired the hacking team, which a couple years ago, which is which they're essentially just bad actors in
They
the
worked with
world.
dictators and authoritarians to subjugate activists and dissidents,
Yes.
spy on them, throw them in jail, the whole nine
So
yards.
Coinbase acquired them, and they're partnering with BlackRock, which is the godfather of ESG and activist investing, taking pensioner funds and buying up a bunch of stock of a bunch of publicly traded companies, and then using that influence to try to corrupt boardrooms across the public markets to force
Buying
the
all the
ESG,
homes.
buying all the homes, doing all the bad stuff. So they're
Like all the good conspiracy theories have a little bit of BlackRock in them.
oh yeah, and a very interesting part about this relationship and why we titled the episode "Is the Fed Buying Bitcoin?" is because the particular facility that Coinbase is going to have access to is something by the name of Aladdin.
It's basically like a
Which,
software suite, right? It's like a
yeah,
portfolio management tool that BlackRock has and uses itself.
yes, it's BlackRock's end-to-end investment management platform. But what's interesting about this is that this is the way the Federal Reserve was able to use and leverage BlackRock in the aftermath of the money printer going burr in 2020 when we shut down the global economy, and the Fed tapped BlackRock on the shoulder to help facilitate the purchasing of corporate debt. And so that was facilitated via this Aladdin product. This is what Coinbase is going to be working with as well. And so ipso facto, by using what is it, associative property, the Fed
Not a
has access to
mathematician.
Bitcoin. Yeah. So via association, it seems that the Fed could potentially buy Bitcoin. Are they buying Bitcoin, Matt?
Well, now they can if they so choose to. They'd be able to relatively easily. It appears to be the case. I mean, BlackRock is look at the end of the day. BlackRock is the single largest fund manager, single largest fund in the world. Right? They're fucking massive. The amount of money that they have under management is fucking insane.
I think it's like 7 and 9 trillion. I think it fell as asset prices fell, but in that range.
So if BlackRock's dipping their toes in here, and we've heard different, executives from BlackRock say different things that made you think that they were watching Bitcoin or they're paying attention to Bitcoin, thinking about investing in Bitcoin. That can obviously make massive waves. They control pensions. They control all this other shit. They obviously provide the Fed its market making operations. So it should be interesting to see how this plays out. It's definitely big news. BlackRock can go fuck themselves. Coinbase can go fuck themselves. But it's definitely something to keep an eye on. It's an interesting development. And also Coinbase, the stock has been absolutely horrible performance-wise. It was up 20% before this news became public today. So just a nice, good old-fashioned insider trading opportunity.
That's what Coinbase is known for these days, so it shouldn't be shocking to anybody. And let's pour some out for Kathy Wood and the ARK funds. Apparently, they dumped all of their Coinbase stock just a couple days before this massive run up. Yeah, don't recommend using Coinbase or BlackRock. The institutions don't care, though. They're going to be using the stuff. So, yeah, it will be interesting to see.
I guess, what do you think about the ESG thing? I mean, you said yourself BlackRock is one of the birth parents of ESG. They're very big in that narrative and investment, quote unquote, strategy. Them setting up themselves to support Bitcoin. What does that mean for you?
I mean, they can't. They can buy as much Bitcoin as they want. It can't affect the protocol. They've already had the ability to. I don't know if they've exercised this ability to date, but just via the fact that there are many and have been many publicly traded Bitcoin miners and Bitcoin related businesses. I mean, before this was even enabled today, BlackRock did have the ability to buy the shares of publicly
Yeah, but do you think? I mean, BlackRock can buy whatever the fuck they want. BlackRock could go and BISC and buy Bitcoin if they wanted to. I'm just saying, like, do you think this is like is this a signal that Bitcoin is ESG compliant? And will you stop doing this show if Bitcoin becomes officially ESG compliant?
No, ESG is dying. It is. I mean, I think Larry Finks had to backtrack in recent months about the ESG narrative, particularly in the context of oil and gas companies. And yeah, maybe they'll try and label Bitcoin as ESG compliant, but again, that doesn't really have an effect on Bitcoin at all. I do think, again, ESG is dying. We just need to keep leaning into that and just make sure BlackRock has as much egg on its face as possible for trying to force that on markets and on the world.
If BlackRock labels Bitcoin ESG compliant, every single freak, that includes me and Carr, whenever Marty is in earshot distance of us and we're explaining Bitcoin to someone, we have to lead with it being BlackRock ESG compliant. So everywhere Marty goes, I want him to walk into different conversations where that's the lead. That's your duty.
That's going to be annoying, but if you're going to do it, I'll figure out how to adjust and say, yeah, it may be ESG compliant, but so is Raytheon.
Well, I always lead whenever I show Raytheon to people, I always lead it with ESG compliance as well. So,
yeah, yeah, we'll see. We'll see if BlackRock tries to influence Bitcoin in any way. Again, I don't think they'll have the ability to successfully influence Bitcoin, but they'll certainly try to influence people building on Bitcoin. I wouldn't be surprised if they try to influence Coinbase one way or another. They are offering Bitcoin only now, but one would only imagine that they'll open the spigots for all the shitcoins that Coinbase has on offer as well. And then maybe that's probably where the signal is, and maybe that's the attack vector on Bitcoin, is if they get access to proof of stake tokens and they begin pushing them on their clients in favor of Bitcoin and really beating the drum of proof of stake over proof of work. I could see that playing out at some point in the next couple of years.
That would be kind of awesome, though.
Yeah, I would love it.
Maybe I'm very good with predictions, so I'm going to make a prediction. Next cycle, BlackRock gets wrecked on shitcoins. Boom.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the it's that's actually a funny that you mentioned that, because it seems like BlackRock caliber institutional investors are falling for the shitcoin casino. There was also news that came out today. We don't have this on the list, but since you brought this up, it stoked the idea in my mind. The Fairfax County retirement system recently gained approval from its board of trustees to begin investing in yield farming, in which investors lend out their digital tokens to crypto projects in return for a fixed stream of payments. So that retirement system in Fairfax County, Virginia, has $6.8 billion in its pension fund. So pension funds are beginning to fuck around with yield farming. So I imagine they're going to get wrecked as well.
Yeah, I mean, on the one of the things that these investors they always have issues with is, they're stuck in this diversification mindset, which is almost guaranteed to get them wrecked on shitcoins when they enter the space. Rather than thinking of Bitcoin within a greater diversification of other shit, which is probably how things like pensions or whatnot should be thinking about Bitcoin.
And if you
Meanwhile, we're all just degens that are just 100% in Bitcoin. So,
well, then also like if you hold your retirement funds in a pension fund, like the Fairfax County retirement fund, you should be a bit worried the fact that these guys are getting in after all these DeFi yield experiments have completely collapsed. They're coming in to a space that is essentially
but this time is different.
Maybe they're buying the bottom. Who knows?
Remember when, like, in the beginning of the yield farming craze, it was like all the vegetables?
Yams.
That feels like so long ago. That was like 8 months ago, right?
Yeah. So it went from vegetables to dogs. Went from like yams to Shiba Inu, and then culminated with a crescendo with Lunaterra. Went from vegetables to animals to celestial beings, or not beings, but
bodies, celestial bodies. We're really flexing all of our non-Bitcoin knowledge, talking about measurements, math, astronomy. Really big episode for me and Marty.
Yeah. Terra, Earth, Luna, Moon, celestial bodies. Okay. Yeah, so institutions are getting in. BlackRock's getting into Bitcoin with Coinbase. Another thing we don't have on the list while we're on the Coinbase partnership, it seems like Meta, formerly Facebook.
This is massive. They'll be able to get NFTs all throughout the Facebook ecosystem.
Yes.
So I refuse to call them Meta. Well. They can go fuck themselves on that one. They're Facebook.
Yeah, nobody calls Google ABC.
Yeah, no one's like, oh, I don't use Alphabet search.
Yeah.
But the Meta thing reminds me more. Alphabet was like, I mean, Google can go fuck themselves too, but Alphabet was more of a, like, Google really does have like a diverse ecosystem of different divisions and shit, and they needed to kind of fix that organizational structure because a lot of them weren't operating under Google. Facebook's name change to me reminds me of that mercenary company, Blackwater. It was like every time they got caught killing like 20 Afghanis, they would just switch their name. They're like, oh, we won't do anything within the organization to clean up our act, but we'll just keep changing our name. I have no idea what name they are now. They're like 5 name changes deep now. But that's what Meta felt like. It was like, oh, Facebook and Instagram, just like as brands, seem evil, so we need to have a new name.
Yeah. Speaking of which, started watching that show, The Terminal List. Caught a couple episodes. And I think that's loosely based on Blackwater like companies.
Who recommended it? It has nothing. I mean, I don't know, but yeah.
I don't know who recommended it, but pretty good show. 2 episodes in.
Someone recommended it.
Yeah.
I watched that, and I watched Streaming Wars. Oh, we talked about that last week, right? Streaming Wars.
Yeah.
South Park.
Streaming Wars. I saw.
The Terminal List was fine. Wasn't anything special.
Yeah, nothing too crazy. Yeah, institutions that get it in, BlackRock, Facebook. I guess if you consider them an institution.
No. Facebook supporting NFTs on their platform through a Coinbase partnership. After Coinbase spent $600 million creating an NFT platform that no one uses, does not equate to institutional adoption of Bitcoin by any means. Now, BlackRock integrating their portfolio software stack that's probably super overpriced with Coinbase that arguably means institutional adoption. Like that's exactly what you'd expect from institutional adoption.
Yes. Are the institutions coming? Do we have to stop wondering about
the institutions are here, and they got wrecked on Luna and Celsius.
that they did? Maybe we use that as a segue into the Celsius news. It's not really news, but it's just some information that's come to light in the wake of their bankruptcy proceedings, which is the creditor list, everybody that Celsius owes money to, and it's like a pretty long list with a bunch of companies.
It's fucking massive list.
It starts out with 1-800-Flowers as it's an alphabetical.
I'm pretty sure it's got to be. It's like people they owe money to, not necessarily people who deposited. Like companies and institutions that they owe money to, in addition to the people that they owe money to because they deposited with them. And I'm pretty sure all the ones that say confidential on the bottom are like the individual users. But like they have a who's of companies here. I just wonder, like 1-800-Flowers, they owe them like $400 for like Mother's Day flowers or something.
Yeah.
Or is like, did 1-800-Flowers do a yield farming strategy and they're on the hook for like $10 million?
Yeah. Or what if it was just somebody like at the manager level at 1-800-Flowers just using the corporate credit card to degen gamble, and
right?
They're forced to disclose that in this bankruptcy proceeding.
There's like Serbian government entities there. Alamo Rent-A-Car. There's crazy. It's a crazy list.
It is. It makes you wonder what the hell was going on at Celsius. Overt Ponzi scheme. So that list is floating out there. If you freaks are interested in who Celsius owes money to, you can find a link to that in the show notes. Moving down the list, or back up to it. This is an interesting development out of Israel. Israel's banning cash for purchases larger than 6,000 units of their native currency. The NIS. What does that stand for?
Marty had no idea. That was it shekels? Israeli shekels?
Shekels is like the biblical term for Hebrew currency, but I don't know.
The article just says it calls it NIS, so I knew Marty had no idea. I didn't know what the currency was called, so I was waiting to see what he would say. But I like units of their native currency.
Thinking on the
that's
go
like
there.
what? It's like $1,700 US.
Yes, yeah, it equates to 1,700 USD.
And I mean, this is just another stop on the road to ban cash that we're seeing happen all throughout the world. Cash restrictions continue to increase on a month-by-month, year-by-year basis. They're compounded by the fact that people are just choosing not to use cash out of convenience as well. So cash usage is just down organically, significantly, because people prefer to use cards and digital payment apps, which is horrible for surveillance. But at the same time, governments are also trying to restrict it, and this is the most recent case. Now, obviously, it's a question of enforcement, right? Like they're not going to go store by store and tell you can't do, and enforce $1,700 payment restriction. But they'll catch some people. They'll make examples of them, and anyone who does cash payments over that amount is basically being criminalized and being pushed underground.
Or on cash heats up. Jevy is making us aware that NIS stands for New Israeli Shekel.
Nailed it.
It is a shekel, but
I really appreciate your fact checking. I appreciate your fact checking. I appreciate it even more when it proves me right. So keep them coming.
Yes.
The new Israeli shekel.
But on the same tip, I mean, it seems that Israel is the go-to alpha test for a lot of these dystopian programs, whether it be the the vaccine passport, the vaccine rollout. There's a lot of talk about CBDC out of Israel, and so this move to ban purchases more than $1,700 in cash. It seems like it may be another alpha test for the people in the world who would like to force us into a digital panopticon. Maybe we hear next that they've come out with a digital wallet attached to their vaccine passport app that has a CBDC in it, and cash just gets banned outright at some point in the next few years. So be on the lookout for that. Yeah, Israel, they're testing all the dystopian stuff there first, it seems. So it'll be interesting to see if any other countries begin to dominate, not dominate, but to roll this out.
I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure France is at $1,000 or €1,000 restriction. So I mean, I actually don't think Israel's leading on this, to be honest. I think when I see $1,700 cash restriction, I wasn't like this groundbreaking leading thing.
Yeah, I mean, even here in the U.S., if you take out more than $10,000 worth of cash at a bank, you have to disclose what you're using it for. So there's
go to a store pretty much anywhere in populated America, so not a rural place. And you go to one of these major cities and you go to a store, let's say you go into a Best Buy and you have a $2,000 bill and you pull out 20 100s, and then tell me how you feel when you do that. Because you will feel, every single person in that interaction will make you feel like a criminal.
Yes.
Even if it's not explicitly illegal. Right now, if you do that, you will feel like a criminal.
Yeah, the eye daggers will come out very quickly. Where did you get this cash, sir?
It might not even might be more than eye daggers. Like a report might be filed.
Yes, will you fill this out for us? Tell us how you acquired this cash.
And I was talking to like a buddy from Sweden, and he said it was like that for $100 payments, $200 payments. It's like, why aren't you using a credit card? Why aren't you using a payment app?
We have Neil in the comments here saying that Best Buy wouldn't take cash for a computer.
Yeah, well, it probably had something to do with him being 8 claws deep too.
He's like, yeah, they want to take my cash, and they were, sir, we can't serve you. You're drunk. You can't be trusted with this heavy machinery.
No, but that doesn't surprise me. I mean, I used Best Buy as an example, but that wouldn't surprise me if they didn't want to take large amounts of cash. We're seeing it happen all over the world right now.
Yeah,
it's one of the reasons why, like, I'm so focused on Bitcoin, is because I understand that to a lot of people, the focus is on the store of value narrative, but to me, obviously that's a solid narrative. I want my wealth to go up. I want my purchasing power of my money to go up as well. But we need a digital alternative to cash, and it needs to be easy to use. It needs to be easy to use privately and sovereignly. And we need it ASAP. And I think Bitcoin is the solution there.
Agreed. Which will segue us to our next topic. But before we get to that, I do want to mention that that's why I love being on this island in the summer, because all the businesses down here predominantly are cash only and have been my entire life.
Yeah.
It's
that's why I have the carve out, right? There's a carve out. You got to be in an urban center.
Yeah. Yeah. You go to a bar down here and you try to put a card down. They're like, what the hell is this? Give me that. And
there's
cash,
a lot of places in Austin and Nashville that are card only. They don't even accept cash, right? But then you go rural, and there's a lot of cash only places that don't accept card.
Yeah, yeah. We're holding down the fort here in South Jersey for the cash lovers of the world. But speaking of using Bitcoin as cash as privately as possible, did you see this thread from John Cantrell? I thought this was interesting.
No, I missed it. What did I love that dude? What did he say?
He wrote a couple days ago. He wrote a really good thread on the proposal for the Lightning Network called route blinding, which attempts to increase the privacy of people receiving sats over the Lightning Network using blinded signatures along the route path to ensure that a sender doesn't have too much information on the person receiving sats over the Lightning Network. So I just thought this was interesting. I think this is something that we should bring to the attention of the freaks because obviously we talk about privacy a lot here, and we've talked about the subpar nature of Bitcoin's privacy natively and the Lightning Network by extension, and this seems like a somewhat promising solution for people who are receiving Bitcoin over the Lightning Network to attain better privacy. Again, it's just a proposal. Nothing's implemented yet, and if you scroll down to the bottom of the thread, like the second to last tweet, John, go up. John has the trade-off here. The only potential downside compared to rendezvous routing is that this flexibility to construct the onion opens the door to potential probing attacks the sender can do to try to expose some of the nodes along the blinded path.
They can do that already.
Yeah, and it would only affect the routing nodes along the path and not the person receiving it at the end of the path. And
well,
it seems like
it might expose routes to the receiver by design. That's the point.
Yeah. So this is good to see at least people thinking about this problem, thinking about solutions. And John seems to be on a big thread kick in recent weeks. So if you're interested in learning more about the Lightning Network, how it works, and some similar proposals like this, he mentioned rendezvous routing in that comparison tweet. There's a thread on rendezvous routing as well. I've always been fascinated by rendezvous routing, and he seems, or I don't know if he seems to think, but the people proposing route blinding seem to think it's a step up from rendezvous routing.
John Cantrell is the man behind Sensei, which is it uses LDK. It's a Lightning implementation, very promising. So if you're not aware of that, go check out Sensei as well. But yeah, all this, there's a lot of work that can be done on the Lightning privacy side. So it's really good to see smart minds dedicated to it.
Yeah. So be on the lookout for more information on route blinding over the Lightning Network. It's really cool what people are working on. People say, oh, Bitcoin's dead. There's no development happening. Lightning doesn't work. Nobody's using it. We're currently using Lightning. If you're listening to this on a Podcasting 2.0 app, I use Lightning literally every day. There is a lot going on in the development space. Don't let anybody tell you that there's no development going on in Bitcoin. It's just
literally every minute of every day, me and Marty receive Lightning payments support from you guys. Every minute of every day. Doesn't matter if it's a Sunday at 2 a.m. And they're not for that much. They're small sats, 1 sat here, 2 sats there, 10 sats here, 50 sats. But it's extremely powerful. We literally use it while we're sleeping. We're using Lightning.
Yeah, it's insane. And Adam Curry was actually tweeting about this earlier too, because if you're using Podcasting 2.0, 1% of the flows goes to the podcasting index, which is what Adam and the Podcasting 2.0 team are running, and that's just to give the ability to host your podcast on Podcasting 2.0. And
it's a centralized server that lists all of our podcasts.
Yes. And it's funded via the value for value model, Podcasting 2.0. And he had a tweet earlier this week of a demonstration of the index receiving sats, and it wasn't even like every minute of every day that they're receiving sats, or receiving multiple payments per minute every second of every day. So it works, and there's a lot going on in Podcasting 2.0. Next up on the list, creating a lot of conversation on the interwebs. Craig Wright versus Peter McCormick, the court in the UK, made their judgment this week. So, yeah, how would you describe this? Apparently, or technically, Peter was found guilty on all counts of defamation, but the judge was like, "You, Craig, you lied throughout this court case." So,
I mean, I think McCormick and many others consider this a win against Craig. Craig is famously known for pretending to be Satoshi, but never providing any kind of verifiable proof, which he could easily do using Satoshi's invention of Bitcoin, where it's very easy to prove you own Bitcoin, that anyone can verify anywhere in the world extremely easily. But I think Peter and a lot of other people, including myself, consider this a win. Peter did drop the truth case, which was like an argument that he wasn't Satoshi. It's very hard to prove someone isn't something. Once again, I'll say that Craig could easily prove he is Satoshi if he is actually Satoshi, which he isn't. But UK libel laws are really fucked up. They're really fucked up. They make free speech very difficult. They allow rich benefactors to sue you into oblivion very easily. I don't think it's a coincidence that Craig has not sued Americans. He mostly targets people that have any kind of British connection or at least European connection. And he also has Calvin Ayre backing him, who is got wealthy and famous for running gambling websites, which are really good at like the Shell Corp games. So they have a lot of money backing them. They're able to sue people, but people can't, counter sue and get their money back. So the big thing here, though, is that it means that Peter does have to pay his own legal fees, which get very expensive, and that's part of this tactic, right? To shut people up by just suing the fuck out of them. But yeah, Craig got awarded only a single pound in damages, so fairly, pretty much the best case possible as a result, short of winning the case outright.
Yeah, and apparently on the way out, the judge threw shade at CSW because I think the context of the case, or part of the context, was that he was suing for libel because it affected his ability to become a magistrate in the courts. And the judge said, well, you lied throughout this whole case, and that's going to have more of an effect on your ability to become a magistrate in the courts than anything Peter McCormick said.
The crux of Craig's case is, my understanding, the crux of Craig's case is against both Peter and Hodlnaut, is that he was basically disinvited from conferences as a result of their tweets and their podcasts. Well, in Peter's case, his podcast, but in Hodlnaut's case, tweets, which is just straight up bullshit, right? Like their tweets did not stop him from getting invited to conferences. Like he got stopped getting invited to conferences because he's a fucking asshole who's making shit up. And that's up to the individual conferences to decide whether or not they're going to have him there. But that's the crux of his whole argument, and that's what they brought to trial here.
Yeah, it is. I mean, people are saying in the comments, British libel laws are shitcoin. Yeah, it's like astonishing that British courts would even take a case like this in 2022. I mean, any objective observer from the outside could see that what you explained is the truth. It wasn't a tweet or a comment on a podcast that prevented him from getting invited to conferences.
I will say that, in the show notes, we have a link to a Guardian article that, I think is actually a pretty good synopsis of everything that happened with this case. So if you want to read more, read that. It is disappointing to see, not only in Bitcoin media, but overwhelming crypto media chose not to cover this. And I think the reason they chose not to cover it is because they're afraid they're going to get sued themselves. And
Really?
that is extremely disappointing to see. It's like, you know, Michael Saylor like drops his green tea and there's like 25 different accounts that tweet about it and write articles about it. But, you know, there's this massive case where someone's pretending to be Satoshi and the judgment is received and no one talks about it. So,
Yeah. I can't wait to put this whole saga and never talk about it again because it's annoying. We shouldn't have to take up 5 minutes of airtime to talk about this insane person.
but it's important we cover it. And more information about HODLNut's case and what you can do to help HODLNut will be coming out shortly. So, and shout out to all the freaks who reached out about helping. I do appreciate you guys.
Yeah, Matt teased that in last week's episode, so be on the lookout for that. Should drop. He goes to court later this month in a couple weeks.
Yeah. Oh, remind me that when we finish recording, Marty, me and you need to talk about something.
Okay.
About that. I meant to talk to you about it before. This business we can't talk about on air.
Okay. Sorry, freaks.
Yeah.
You mentioned Michael Saylor. Everybody tripping over themselves to cover everything he does. That was another
news. We didn't
news
have that on the list.
No, but he stepped down.
Because it's not news.
His MicroStrategy CEO is moving to executive chairman. Yeah, a lot of speculation.
Look, the guy controls the company. I've been very critical of Saylor in the past when I think he deserves some criticism and some feedback. But the guy runs this company. He's the majority shareholder of this company. He's turned them completely into, you know, a Bitcoin stacking organization. But they still have like a computer software business. And like he probably just doesn't want to fucking run that business anymore. He just wants to buy Bitcoin and shitpost on Twitter, do fucking interviews, and like that makes sense. Like why should he be running the software business?
Yes. Yeah,
literally non-news, complete non-story.
Yeah, well, the traditional financial media is picking up like, ooh, was something going on? Did he get kicked out of the board? But like you said, I'm pretty sure he has full control of the board in terms of the amount of stocks that he owns. So
the proof that he has full control of the company is that they still haven't sold their fucking Bitcoin, and they bought so much of it to begin with. Right, like if he had even if there's like we like to talk about with like Bitcoin is like this distributed bug bounty because anywhere in the world over the last 13 years could compromise Bitcoin and make money off of it. So there's like this distributed bug bounty. Well, within his organization is the same exact thing for stopping their Bitcoin strategy. Like if there was any way whatsoever to get around him and sell that Bitcoin and go back to being a software company, someone would have done it.
Yeah. And this dude who took over as CEO was the CFO, helped them craft the Bitcoin purchasing strategy. So he seems, in the context of Bitcoin, to be a friendly. Like he facilitated all the buys to date. So it's hard to believe that he's going to step in and be like, we're selling all of our Bitcoin. He probably wouldn't be able to because the executive chairman.
Even if they did, so fucking be it. They can have fun staying poor, but this is not really news. This is just Saylor setting up his priorities, which seem to be Bitcoin.
Yes. So that happened this week. Back to probably more important signal that hasn't gotten a lot of coverage. I wasn't made aware of this until I saw it on the list and read through the article. The Victorian government out of Australia is increasing their ability to seize assets. And so they passed a new law that is making their asset seizure abilities much easier. And this includes their ability to force cryptocurrency exchanges and platforms to hand over information about suspects, and they'll have the ability to seize quote unquote wallets in a bid to tackle crime as well. So
they'll have like the legal ability. It obviously doesn't give them a button to take self-custody while it's over.
Yeah, so
but expect more of this. To me, this is first of all, I mean, Marty said earlier that Israel is like a test bed for draconian shit. I would like to nominate Australia.
yes,
They've been pretty good about being on the front of all the bullshit. But yeah, this is kind of what I expect, right? What I expect is okay, Bitcoin is obviously seizure resistant. It's hard to seize. It's possible to use it privately. It is a draconian government's worst nightmare. Okay, so what does draconian governments do? What do they do in that situation? Well, the first step they do is make sure they legally have the power to take shit, legally have the power to declare people a criminal for not listening to them and trying to use Bitcoin privately. You do those two things, and then you do surveillance and you do good old fashioned police work, and you make an example out of a few people, and then like 95% of people comply and keep everything above the book. And show them everything, give them as much information as they ask for. That's the path I see a lot of governments taking here. And that's the unfortunate reality of the situation. I think, no amount of lobbying or anything can really stop that from happening in many of these countries. Maybe lobbying does delay it while, the tools get built out better and the circular economy gets built out better. But I think that's the optimistic take. The optimistic take is that, maybe we'll have a little bit more time than we thought otherwise. But I would say a shit ton of countries are going to have a shit ton of governments that choose to try and criminalize private Bitcoin usage and surveil us as much as possible.
Yeah, it's coming, freaks. It's coming. So if you're an Australian freak out there and you're not aware of this, be aware of this. Be aware. If you're an Australian freak who attended the Bitcoin Bush Bash last weekend, I hope you had a good time. I
heard great things about that.
I heard an audio file of somebody playing the Joker, the song, right? The band. It's coming to me, Marshall Band, not Stevie Ray Vaughan. No,
hey,
something Marshall Band. Some people call me a space cowboy. Some freak put it in the comments. It's really going to piss me off that I can't think of the band name. Steve Miller Band. Not Marshall, the Steve Miller Band. Thank you.
You were too quick, P-Man. You don't get 10,000 sats. I was about to...
The P-Man Band, Steve Miller Band. Yeah, it seems like they had some live music there.
Look at
those. Good. But you mentioned...
Boomer Marty with the dad rock.
You mentioned lobbying, and that's another thing we don't have on the list, but I saw Alex Leishman from River was tweeting about it yesterday and was only able to see it because he took a screenshot from somebody that I'm blocked by, which is Sam Bankman-Fried.
No, you were on one.
Yeah. And apparently he backed Representative Boozman in California, I believe, and she was going to lose that election, but he stepped in, funded her. She got reelected, and now she sits on like the agricultural committee, but for some reason she's crafting crypto regulation, and he seems to be happy about that. But yeah, it does seem Alex's couple tweets about the situation were just highly skeptical about the industry's coverage of SBF and his intent in terms of spending all this money on politicians. I think he spent something like $10 million on Biden's campaign. He obviously funded this rep who's putting forth this regulation bill, and it seems like he's spending a lot of money to create a regulatory moat. I think he may be CIA backed.
Why do you think he's CIA backed, Marty? Let's dig into this.
Let's dig into FTX and
I mean, you said something specific. You said SBF is a CIA asset. That's what you tweeted out, right?
I'm just using heuristics of... It's just weird how quickly he became this magnanimous figure in the space, and then FTX became an ironclad like AAA rated brand in the space, and they were able to go buy up the sponsorships to all these sports leagues and these arenas and run Super Bowl commercials. I mean, they came up in 2018, 2019, which was the middle of the bear market where volumes drop. There's not a lot of returns to be made. There's a lot of boring trading going on, and the fact that he was able to become a deca billionaire in that time period. And then the first pieces, like if you go back and do like the research, and when people first started talking about SBF, it was articles in like Bloomberg and the Wall Street Journal that were depicting him as some savant. And then on top of that, you can go into his family history, and his mother is a law professor at Stanford, and she's had very close ties to government funding and communistic tendencies as well. And I wouldn't be surprised if he's an asset of the intelligence community here in the U.S. or abroad. It's just a bit odd how quickly they blew up, especially like BitMEX wasn't destroyed then either. They were like the main go-to options exchange. Like from what I could tell too, they like weren't even that popular of an exchange when he blew up. Like a lot of the volumes were elsewhere.
So first of all,
and he had Bill Clinton and Tony Blair on stage with him at his conference.
I've told Marty many times we don't live in a free country, but I am proud to be an American because if Marty said that as a British person, SBF could probably sue the shit out of him. But as an American, he's allowed to say that, right? Coming just to tie it back to the bullshit CSW case. But the way I remember it, just for context here, is that SBF had a trading operation called Alameda, and they were the main market maker of BitMEX. And they didn't like that they were paying fees to BitMEX, and BitMEX was trading against them. So they created their own shop and moved all their market making activity over there. So they essentially took a huge portion of BitMEX volume, which was theirs, and then they moved it over to their own shop and controlled the whole house themselves. And then they were massively successful at that. And then rich people buy politicians because that's what rich people do in our system. Like that's
Don't you think it was odd though that he like why the fuck were Tony Blair and Bill Clinton the keynote speakers
because
at his conference?
Because he's a rich person. He's a rich person who wants influence. So you always get all the has-been politicians in those situations.
But they're not. I'm not saying
he's not a CIA asset. I'm just what?
They're not even has-been politicians. I mean, Bill Clinton's directly associated with Jeffrey Epstein, who was definitely a Mossad agent.
Yeah, I mean, but Bill Clinton was also a president for 8 years, and is still super influential.
It's just weird that people, like, if you're running it doesn't seem genuine.
Ripple paid for is Ripple a CIA? Ripple paid for Bill. Are they CIA front?
Would not be shocked at all. Yeah,
I think that's a massive compliment to Ripple to call them a CIA front.
I mean, they definitely confuse a lot.
I don't think they deserve. I don't think they deserve enough connection. Enough. They don't deserve credit for being a CIA front. That is just a classic shitcoin scam operation.
I don't know. They were able to make partnerships with banks rather easily when the regulatory environment was still a bit hazy there.
My point, I guess, look, who the fuck knows? I guess my point is our system is insanely corrupt. But the CIA is mostly incompetent.
I would not say that.
And I think you're giving too much credit.
They killed JFK.
Too much credit to Ripple. Probably not enough credit to SBF. And
the CIA is incompetent. Like Operation Mockingbird.
Yeah.
MK Ultra, Paperclip, like Golf of Tonkin. They're behind all this shit. Like they're behind the color revolutions, Panama. They were
Yeah, but
behind it.
I mean, you're
they're
talking
not
about like
incompetent.
OG CIA. I just don't think the CIA is what it used to be.
We can only hope. I mean, JFK
Let me put it.
said
I 100% disagree on Ripple being a CIA op. There is no shot in hell. You're giving them way too much credit.
but you don't disagree that
Chris
SBF
Larson can go fuck himself. What? I think SBF was a successful shitcoin grifter and is leveraging his wealth the way Americans leverage their wealth, which is by buying people, buying influence, buying Tom Brady, buying Giselle, buying Bill Clinton.
There's so much buying though.
Buying arenas.
Was the shitcoin casino that lucrative, or he's spending billions of dollars?
Yeah. I mean, have you seen the BitMEX leaderboards?
Not in a while.
That shit was fucking insane. That's why everyone degens and loses all their fucking money. So 1% takes all their money.
Yeah.
I could see what Jim F said, that they have leverage on SBF. I think they have leverage on a lot of rich people.
Yeah, and if you have leverage, they become an asset.
I guess. But that's I think most of the successful public founders that are running regulated businesses are obviously prime targets for all this shit. The question is it an elite up or not?
Yeah.
Like,
I think the CIA is.
Like, do you think the CIA bankrolled Alameda from the beginning?
Wouldn't be surprised.
I would be surprised. That's the difference.
I think it's a perfect attack vector. You get this magnanimous figure that's upheld by at first.
But he's not that figure. He's like,
yes, he is, dude. In the mainstream, he is.
I don't know about that.
And going back to like Mockingbird and Paperclip, like the CIA definitely, like Obama had to admit this when he was in office. Like the CIA has operatives in the media, and the first big stories about this dude were from Bloomberg and the Wall Street Journal.
I guess we don't have to. Maybe we'll find out eventually, or maybe we won't.
Maybe we will. Speaking about the power, I mean, JFK said, "I'd like to take the CIA, shatter it into 10,000 pieces, and throw it to the wind." And he got his head shot off.
Very long career.
Just a couple weeks later. So
I also think the most recent one that is the Michael Hastings thing is.
Oh yeah, well that was the FBI.
Really fucked up.
That was the FBI.
You think that was the FBI?
Oh yeah, no. What? I mean, if you dig into that story, like he called his parents the night before and said, he was writing. The story was about the FBI and corruption in the FBI.
I think
he called his parents.
Oh, I'm pretty sure he had the Snowden docs. It lines up perfectly on the Snowden docs. Like Snowden docs came out like 6 months later.
Yeah,
I think Hastings was the cover up of the Snowden docs, and then Snowden threw his life away to get the information out.
Yeah, but that's NSA. It was the NSA.
That's what I'm saying. I think that was above the FBI. I think you're giving the FBI too much credit now.
Well, go into the story. It's apparently, if I recall correctly, and this could be fact checked, he did call his parents and say, "I'm writing a story on the FBI. I think they're intimidating me." And the next day, they took remote control of his Mercedes and drove it into a wall in the middle of the city at like 100 miles an hour.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely. That's why you got to get cars that are older than Bitcoin freaks.
Yeah, despite the fact that I'm posting links to Blink-182's Adam songs, I do not have any suicidal thoughts, freaks.
I don't know about that. That tweet seems to imply otherwise.
It's just a good song. It is a bit depressing, and it is about depression, but it's a good song. I am not depressed. I have 2 beautiful children, a beautiful wife, beautiful family.
I would never commit suicide, period, 100%.
Yes,
and
neither would I.
These are the clips you can. If either of us allegedly commit suicide, you can play this clip. Just remember to subscribe to Rabbit Hole Recap on your favorite podcast app.
Yeah, after we're gone, you'll be able to go back and reminisce about the good times when we were setting ourselves up to get killed by the intelligence agency.
But the question is the Fed buying Bitcoin? No, but they could if they wanted to.
It could be. Aladdin is hooked up to Coinbase now.
Did you see one of the freaks accused us of a clickbait headline in the comments about a half an hour ago?
Yeah, freaks, if you haven't realized, since we changed streams, we've been going strictly clickbait headlines. So
we are guilty of the clickbait headline on this one.
It's fun.
Carr takes full blame on this one. It was all Carr. No personal responsibility from me and Marty.
It's become a fun new routine. Before we go live, we try to think of funny clickbait headlines. The one I had before, I think, was good. The Unholy Alliance part of it was not, but the Zerg rush, the potential Zerg rush from the IRS that's coming, I thought that was a good headline.
Oh, we have Sessions in the comments. He reminds me, that was really disappointing that McAfee's Deadman switch wasn't real.
Well, do you want Marty Jones to come out and tell you the Deadman
was
switch
McAfee
theory?
a CIA asset?
No, the theory is that his Deadman switch was located in that building in Miami Beach that collapsed randomly. Remember that last year, a couple of years ago?
No. I remember the building. Yes, I remember the building.
Yeah, so apparently there was a server.
Why was his Deadman switch in that building?
I have no idea.
Like a random condo building.
Yeah, that's the theory though. Is that his?
I agree with Yellow. My theory is that McAfee's not dead. We never saw a body. It was in a corrupt Spanish jail. The only strong argument against my theory is that I don't know if McAfee's humble enough to not tweet for this long after faking his death.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the theory is that, he had a Deadman switch with all the dirt on people. John McAfee's such a interesting character, or was an interesting character.
He was a scammer, or he is a scammer if he's still alive. And if you're watching, John, we'd love to have you on the show.
Yes. Come out of your coffin and hop on the show. We'd love to chat with you. Back to Bitcoin stuff, though. That was a fun tinfoil hat session we did there. This is good to see. Really good to see. I had Jan Chapik from Brains on a couple weeks ago. A lot of that conversation focused on Stratum V2, which, if you freaks are unaware, is a new mining pool protocol that would allow individual miners to construct their own block templates and order their own transactions. Right now, the way it happens if you're contributing to a pool is the pool creates the block template and puts all the transactions in it and then broadcasts the block to the rest of the network. Stratum V2 is a push to not only make that process a bit more decentralized by giving individual miners the ability to construct their own blocks, but it also comes with added privacy bonuses. The communications are encrypted over it. And news dropped this week that Foundry has made 100 million sat donation to open source Stratum V2 to a Stratum V2 protocol developer. So this is good to see. I'm
proud of you, Marty. Marty just on the fly converted 1 Bitcoin grant to 100 million sats.
Well, I didn't even have to. That was the beauty of it. Foundry, which is run by a very strong team over there. Shout out Kevin, shout out Jay, shout out everybody involved, Mike, over at Foundry. They are the largest pool in the world right now, but I believe in their announcement tweet, they denominated the donation in sats.
So, I mean, this is big news because, as Marty just said, they are the largest pool. The Stratum V2 brings a lot of improvements over Stratum V1, the way that most miners connect to their pools. But the big thing for me, as Marty highlighted there, is this idea of individual miners constructing blocks. So right now, the mining pool operators are choosing which transactions go in a block, and that is censorship. That adds censorship risk because a government or someone can pressure them and say, don't include these transactions in a block. And individual miners, the only option they have is to leave that pool and go to another pool. So This would flip that on its head, and individual miners of a pool would be able to choose which transactions go in a block. Right now, Brains Pool, formerly Slush Pool, is the only one that supports Stratum v2. They do not support the block construction aspect of it. They support all the other improvements, and you have to run their firmware. So right now, you need to have Bitmain ASICs because their firmware doesn't support Wets miners yet. But they don't support the actual block construction aspect of it. Foundry seems like they're going to be the first pool to do that. They are the largest pool. That's a massive change. Would be fantastic to see. Trade-offs. Everything has trade-offs. Let's think about these for a second. Main trade-off is the individual miners all of a sudden need to be running their own nodes. They need to know how to construct block templates. They have to do it themselves. Second major trade-off. If you're mining in a pool right now, you're splitting all the revenues proportionally depending on how much hash you provide. If individual miners are right now, recently we've seen fees go up a little bit. I'm not going to get ahead of myself like I have in the past, but we've seen fees go up a little bit. As fees become more of a portion of the miner reward, the way you construct a block is going to change revenue dramatically. There's a project that most of you guys know about that I'm not allowed to publicly talk about right now, but are working in that space essentially to allow Foundry to roll this out, but be able to, in a transparent and verifiable way, prove when miners essentially leave money on the table. And if that's the case and they leave money on the table, then they basically have to give a portion of their reward to the other miners because they did a non-revenue, not the best thing for revenue for the whole pool. So that's kind of like the missing element here, is this essentially this ability to transparently verify the block construction to make sure that miners aren't screwing over their peers in the pool.
Yeah. How do you ensure that an individual miner is getting the most fees as possible into a block? There's also a caveat here, though. Like before Foundry can even implement the block construction part, something does have to get merged into Bitcoin Core on the negotiation side of things. So there is a BIP out there, there's a BIP being constructed that changes the way negotiation works at the mining level. And so I believe that has to get merged first, and then Foundry and the other pools will be able to implement the construction part of Stratum v2.
Well, it should be relatively non-controversial. This does not affect consensus. It does not create a fork. Doesn't do any of those things. It just has to do with how miners negotiate the blocks.
Yes. And so if you want to learn about that, again, go check out that episode with Jan that I recorded a couple weeks ago. And then if you want to go check out the first episode that we recorded with Jan and Pavel from Brains back when Stratum v2 was Better Hash, which Matt Corallo presented. And on that first episode we recorded, they said, hey, Better Hash has some problems. We're going to present the Stratum v2 protocol. So if you want to go back to the original intention of Stratum v2, that's a great episode to check out as well.
Yeah, pretty much anything you read about Better Hash, you can just replace it with the term Stratum v2, and that was the beginning of Stratum v2.
Yeah. Some Bitcoin history free freaks. Yeah, be very interested. We need to catch up with Matt Corallo soon, because he built Stratum v1, I'm pretty sure, and like the fiber connections and all that. It'd be interesting to see what he thinks about what's been going on with Stratum v2. I'm sure he's been very busy with LDK, but
yeah, he's been neck deep with LDK at Spiral.
Yeah. Next up on the list, Galoy raises $4 million and launches StableSats, which is being portrayed as bringing stablecoins to the Lightning Network. There's been a couple of implementations of this. The guys over at Synonym were using OP-Return and the Omni protocol to put Tether on Lightning. Taro has not been implemented yet, but there was discussions of potential for stablecoins to be issued via Taro when that becomes and that goes live on the Lightning Network. And now Galoy has raised money and announces that they're bringing Bitcoin back to US dollar balances onto Lightning. What are your thoughts on this?
Who led this round?
Matt?
Car just scrolled past it. So Valor Equity Partners. Oh, I started late. Hive Mind Ventures. So the way I understand stable sats is, so with the traditional stable coin like Tether, you have the Tether Bitfinex guys are essentially holding dollars or dollar equivalents, whether that's bonds or some shit, in a bank account somewhere, and that's what's backing it. So you have the centralized third party that's doing that. With stable sats, it's more of a protocol, and basically you do still have a custodian, but the custodian is going short Bitcoin. So our
sort of like a
Hasu
contract for difference.
Yeah, it's an inverse swap. So like Hasu has like a couple of years ago had some posts about doing this on BitMEX, which is basically you do a non-leveraged short and you hold the underlying asset, and it essentially equivalents to stablecoin, because if it goes short, you're good, and if it goes up, you're good because Bitcoin is the collateral. So the way they have it set up is theoretically you could use any exchange that allows you to go short Bitcoin, and it doesn't have to be an exchange that holds USD or has banking support. Right now they're rolling it out with OKX first. OKX is handling all the swaps, but yeah, I mean, they think, and I'm not sold on this yet, they think that it's more regulatory resistant because you can use any platform that allows you to go short Bitcoin. And it doesn't necessarily have to have banking relationships. It could be run by NIMS, something like LN Markets. But essentially, at the end of the day, in practice for the end user, they're still getting they're essentially getting the appearance of US dollars. And they have that third party risk of whoever the custodian is that is doing the swaps versus the custodian that's holding Tether or holding USDC or something like that. So in practice, the trust trade-off is pretty similar to users, with one caveat being they seem to imply that in the future they're going to add the ability to introduce leverage. So if you do a non-levered short, then essentially you're good. You're equal to value. Presumably, you could do 2x short or a 4x short or something if you don't want to keep as much funds with the custodian. So you like to do $1, you do like 25 cents worth of Bitcoin as collateral and you leverage it. But obviously, you'd get blown the fuck out if the price of Bitcoin goes up. So that adds a different nuanced trade-off there. I'm still not sold on how important this shit is. I think we'll have different stablecoins. Some of them will blow up, but at the end of the day, it's a short-term transitioning thing. When people are demanding dollars, ultimately the stablecoin should be Sats. My stablecoin is Sats. No one can take them from me without putting a gun to my head. And that makes them stable even if they're volatile. And I think long term, with adoption, that stability should peter out. We should have more stability. We should have less short-term volatility as liquidity increases with adoption. But in the short term, there are obviously people in the developing world who demand dollars, who want dollars. The banking system is failing them, and maybe this provides another option for them to do so.
Yeah, they want dollars, and as importantly, potentially more importantly, they want to move those dollars using censorship-resistant networks like Bitcoin and the Lightning Network. So,
yeah, they're not really using the Lightning Network to send this shit. My understanding.
Well, it seems like, yeah, for what they see in the wallet, like it seems like they are. But on the back end, Galoy's doing all this perp swap.
Well, it's not. It's in this case. Like in this case, with the MVP, my understanding is OKX is doing it.
Yeah, Galoy, via their partnership
Right.
with OKX, is handling all the rebalancing on the futures trading side of things. Yeah, and I agree. I mean, we've said it many times. I think my conversations with Matt Alborg specifically, who's done a ton of research. He's at Bitrefill now, but before Bitrefill, he had his own thing, Useful Tulips. I think he still has that thing, but he was doing a lot of research in emerging economies of how people on the ground are using Bitcoin, and a lot of them are using it to get access to stable coins to use on the ground and to send abroad. Like Matt said, I think stable coins are inherently unstable at the end of the day. There's a lot of third-party risks that exist, but it seems that many people in the developing world specifically are willing to take that risk to get access to those dollars and send them over these distributed networks. I do think, I mean, there'll be a stepping stone to hyper Bitcoinization where they'll transition to sats as their stable coin at some point in the future.
I mean, there's places in Latin America where you can go straight from cash to stable coins back to cash without ever interacting with Bitcoin. I mean, I think that's completely fine. Like, I think it's a different use case. It's Bitcoin is not. It's not competing with Bitcoin.
No.
It's a completely different use case. It's a completely different trust trade-off. I mean, I was talking to Dario about Terra collapse, right? And because of all the Tether FUD, a lot of Argentinians, just working class people, bought Terra because they were like, oh, it's the algorithmic distributed version of Tether or whatever, like bullshit marketing they had. And they all got rug pulled, and they realized that's how they realized the trust trade-off, right? And where these things get scammy is where that trade-off isn't very clear to the user. So I do hope that the stable sats messaging is very clear that there's a trust trade-off there. I would say there's a lot of Argentinians that wish they were holding Bitcoin instead of Terra when that fucking thing went up. But in the meantime, what's going to happen is we're going to see a lot of convenient, low-cost options for basically trading USD IOUs around, and people will flock to them. And as they get rug pulled, as they get shotgun KYC, they will start to learn the value of Bitcoin and why Bitcoin makes the trade-offs it makes. John Bayo is saying Luna was what was backing Terra. Terra was the USD token, the token that was supposed to represent USD and be pegged 1-to-1. And then Luna was the free-floating shitcoin that was designed to pump forever, as long as the rug wasn't pulled.
Yes, the yield staking token.
Sometimes I resent how much my desire to keep the freaks informed make me have to pay attention to this shit. Like, how did I just like rattled that off? Fuck.
Well, yeah, and like buttoning up this stablecoin conversation, while there is relative stability now, you can't lose sight of the fact that they represent dollars, which is controlled by the Fed, which is hell-bent on completely debasing the value of those dollars at the end of the day. So even though you're escaping relatively weak currencies into the dollar is relatively strong compared to all the lesser currencies of the world. But as you'll see in one of the topics on the back end of the show, the dollar is losing favor, and it is obviously people using dollars are experiencing inflation right now here in the United States. And it seems like the Fed is reversing course on their policy and will probably turn the money printer on at some point within the next year. And so just while they are relatively stable, they are still completely unstable because they're essentially controlled by the Federal Reserve that cannot keep their finger away from the money printing button. We've got one shout out this week. We'll get to that. The kingdom of heaven is like a treasure buried in a field, which a person finds then hides again, and out of joy sells all that he has and buys that field. Matthew 13:44, St. Joseph, terror of demons, pray for us. So nice verse and little prayer there.
Thanks for the support, Freak. We appreciate you.
I came in earlier this morning. Love shout outs tftc.io/contribute is where you can purchase a shout out that we will read on air. I want to give special props to this anonymous freak who did not make me say anything vulgar in the shout out. It's nice when we get a week off from that. It seem more legitimate. On to software updates. Raspberry Blitz version 1.8.0 has been released. We got more languages.
You're not going to read the whole. You're not going to read the whole.
Core Lightning GUI is updated. All that good stuff. Cold Card version 5.0.6 has been released.
This one's important.
Yeah, there's a security update here with the virtual disk.
Yeah. So Peter and NVK discovered a potential vulnerability with their virtual disk feature, which basically when you plug in, if you have it enabled, it's opt-in. If you have it enabled, it treats the cold card like it's an external drive, so you can plug it into phones really easily and just transfer the partially signed Bitcoin transaction that way. There is a potential vulnerability there. Version 5.0.6 patches it. This only affects the MK4, only affects you if you're opted in to that feature. And we don't know what the vulnerability is. I presume they're going to disclose it at a later date after people update.
Yes. So,
or they may never tell us.
Don't they have to tell you?
They can do whatever the fuck they want. We will bother MBK until he tells us. Just remind us in 3 months.
Yes. So again, if you're running a version if you're using MK4, running a version before 5.0.6, and you had that virtual disk feature enabled, go upgrade immediately. If not,
or disable it. One or the other.
Yeah. If not, you don't have to rush. Sparrow Wallet version 1.6.6 has been released.
Another big one.
BIP47 support for Bitcoin Core connections has been added.
So they already had BIP47 support. I don't know what that part means. Maybe if you're using Bitcoin Core as your node instead of Electrum server. I've only used Sparrow with Electrum server, but they've had BIP47 for a while. Yes, Braj. Someone did sound like someone just locked their car multiple times in Marty's background. The big thing here is, so he added Auth47 support, which is BIP47's version of basically LN Auth, where you sign in with your BIP47 payment code rather than a password or a username. He also added LN URL Auth, where you sign in with your Lightning node usually, but Sparrow doesn't have a Lightning node. So he just derives a key from your seed and mimics LN URL auth support, even though he doesn't have Lightning support, which I thought was pretty clever, because ultimately LN URL auth is just private key, public key authentication. So he integrated that into Sparrow as well. So now if you have Sparrow on your desktop, you can sign into any website that supports either of those two standards, which is pretty fucking awesome.
Who the fuck mows their lawn at 3:45 on a Thursday? Like,
they're obviously CIA assets.
Can you hear it?
Line up. Yeah, we can hear it.
Okay, I'll mute as much as I can. I know that's annoying. fucking mow your lawn on Saturday morning like normal people. Jesus Christ.
It's not horrible, but you should definitely have a conversation with them and see if they are backed by the CIA.
Yes. I mentioned the fact that the US dollar isn't stable during our stablecoins conversation, something that highlights this. The fact that not only is it unstable because the Federal Reserve has central control of it, prints it ad nauseum. One of the things that gives the dollar psychologically, makes it psychologically strong in the mind, not only of U.S. citizens, but global citizens, is the fact that there's constantly demand for U.S. treasuries, or historically there's constantly been demand for U.S. treasuries. And that's tied closely to the strength of the dollar. news came out this week that foreigners just hold just 33% of U.S. debt, which is the lowest amount this century. And this is the number one requirement for reserve currency is for foreigners to fund your debts, to buy your treasuries. And so it looks like the holdings of U.S. treasuries by foreign entities peaked around 2008, 2009. It has been falling ever since then, but
it looks like foreign holdings have increased. It's just we hold more now.
Yeah, so the Fed is monetizing the debt essentially, printing money.
The percentage is down. The percentage is down, but the absolute amount that foreigners hold continues to increase.
Yeah. Yes, it's a very good point. Well, it's fallen since late 2021.
But barely though.
Yeah. So the Fed. This is more of to highlight that the Fed is monetizing the debt. They're printing money and buying their own treasuries because the demand outside, while people are still buying, it's not as strong as they need it to be, so they buy their own treasuries.
Yeah, I mean, I love loaning money to myself. I do it all the time.
Well, it's like if you know Fed... God damn it. If you know Fed policy history, particularly the last 15 years, that was one thing Ben Bernanke, Janet Yellen, and Jerome Powell, I believe, have all said, is that they'll never monetize the debt. And I mean, this is
and it's what the Japanese do, right?
Yeah, exactly.
The Japanese have been doing this for a while.
Yeah. You can never trust the Fed. They'll say one thing and do the exact opposite. They're monetizing the debt. They'll try to say they're not, but they are. It's hard to deny.
Just to bring it all back, I mean, what they should do is use that snazzy new BlackRock Coinbase integration and print money and buy Bitcoin with it until everyone figures it out.
Yeah, agree. Norwell Tacos is asking, my Philly accent came out there, tacos. Norwell Tacos, going to get a hoagie. Motherfuckers, these guys.
Marty just got up to yell at them. I hope he gives them the proper dad treatment.
Do you know who I am? Do you know what show we're recording right now? I had to shut up. I mean, Russia and China, to answer the question of what else would they hold, I mean, it's for the last 10, 20 years, Russia and China have been amassing crazy amounts of gold on their balance sheet. So I think a lot of these people are buying gold in lieu of U.S. treasuries, even though gold has not increased in value that much over the last decade.
Indeed. We have Jim in the comments saying that Dylan LeClaire, our boy Dylan, said that one of the people that Celsius owes money to is your favorite organization.
The World Economic Forum.
Yep, they are indeed listed. I just verified. That's hilarious. In good company.
I mean, didn't like Meltem and Jill Gunther, didn't they write like a piece about the ability to get yield on these crypto assets for the World Economic Forum? I think I recall that. So that wouldn't surprise me if they wrote that.
I mean, like, it wouldn't surprise me. Also, like, Celsius could just have bought a WEF subscription. Do they have a subscription?
I don't know.
They just owe them money.
Yeah. They bought a ticket to Davos, to the yearly summit,
but then didn't pay for the ticket, or maybe they were a sponsor. They could have been a sponsor to Davos.
That wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, that's probably it. There you go.
Yeah.
We figured it out on air. Hopefully the WEF had billions of dollars in there to generate yield and got completely rug pulled, but more likely they bought a sponsorship that they never paid for. Celsius bought a sponsorship that they never paid for. I had one thing to talk about that we didn't have on the list that I just remembered. Riot came out recently and said that this month they made more Bitcoin shutting down their
Selling power.
miners and getting paid for it because they shut down their miners during high demand. They got paid more than their miners would have mined in Bitcoin.
Yes,
That's crazy.
yes, that is true. Which again, I think we've discussed this in the last couple of months, which is the optics of the Bitcoin mining industry, particularly around these demand response programs. It'll be interesting to see how any in the mainstream corporate media hop on this story, because Riot and other people who are engaged in these demand response programs only shut down because they're getting paid to shut down, and they're basically shut down and then they have the ability to sell that electricity to market at the current spot price. And the only times they shut down is when the current spot price is abnormally high. And so it'll be interesting to see if any narratives begin to form of Bitcoin miners gouging residential electricity consumers at times of high demand and stress. The argument for the mining industry, which I co-sign, god damn it, is that electricity wouldn't be there, so it's better to buy something at a high price than not be able to buy it at all.
This is great, Matt, by the way. This is great.
So what happens when you leave the studio?
Wait, but are they selling it at market price, or is it an agreed upon? Is it an agreed upon amount?
No, it's spot price. They've
So
agreed upon they've agreed upon amount of which they purchase electricity to mine, but when they're asked to turn off, I believe a lot of these programs have like an uncapped spot price that they can sell at.
It's based on spot price.
Yeah.
So there's no one else. There's no one on the other side of that trade besides consumers, or is there someone on the other side of the trade besides consumers that is taking a hit? Like, is it someone in my comments said that there's like a power brokerage? Texas is unique in how they handle this because ERCOT is isolated. All the other utilities are kind of connected to each other, and then ERCOT, which is Texas's power utility, whatever, is isolated.
I'm not an expert by any means on the demand response programs, but the way I understand it is they sell to ERCOT, who then sells to consumers, and they pass that cost on to consumers.
Interesting. I mean, theoretically, it should be like if it was a properly efficient market, it should be like 1 sat more than the miners would earn.
Yes.
To get them to turn it off, right? It's like just barely past what the miners would earn. But like they made significantly more than if their miners were on. Like in best case scenario for Riot is that the grid is stressed for the next couple of months and they just don't have their miners on.
Cash. Yeah. Which is, I mean, and this is like a lot of people will throw shade at Riot and the other miners doing this, but this is don't hate the player, hate the game. Like this problem could be
100%.
completely solved if Texas just wised up and stopped giving out an insane amount of renewable energy credits for people to build out unreliable baseload with wind and solar, and instead decide to spin up a few nuclear power plants, natural gas power plants, coal power plants, even where the grid didn't even approach the point of stress, and didn't have to like go to Riot and use other miners to shut down. It's the game. I mean, the incentives of the game down there are completely fucked.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a couple takeaways here. First of all, like obviously it's working the way it was designed to work on the demand response side. Bitcoin miners are acting as obviously like a buyer of first and last resort. They're a guaranteed buyer, and then that allows financing of capacity way higher than normal standard capacity. And then when that demand requirement goes up and you need to actually flex that capacity, they're able to turn off on a dime and and just shut off their taking of that energy, their use of that energy, so other people can use it. So I mean, that worked exactly as designed. One thing I would mention here, and we've been pretty vocal about this on Rabbit Hole Recap, I do not like that miners pretend they're doing this out of the goodness of their heart. Like, I don't know if Riot specifically did it, but like when the miners turned off, they like all released press releases like, we turned off our power so that you can have AC. It's like, no, you turned off your power because you're getting paid way more than if you kept your power on, which is fine. It's just a normal incentive, but you can't have your cake and eat it too. And then the third thing is concerning to me is it does seem like a centralization risk. Because it is one thing that a large miner can get a massive advantage on, that small off-grid miners, small on-grid miners, or smaller miners in general aren't probably able to get those kind of terms where they're able to make significantly more money having their miners off than having their miners on.
Yeah, and then alternatively, it's if we're going to put our adversarial thinking caps on here and think about how the government could attack. Like, imagine if the government just artificially increased the price of energy in some way or another and incentivized all these miners to shut down for an extended period of time and played hash rate games, like sort of figured
That's
out
fun.
the way to manipulate energy prices to have hash rate flicker on and off sporadically.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of games you can play once you have a large amount of the hash rate controlled by known entities in large warehouses connected to grids.
Yeah, I completely co-sign your message though. Like, these companies should not be LARPing about like, oh, we're doing it out of the goodness of our hearts. Like, they're making a killing.
Yeah, and like we have BTC pins in the comments. Like, I 100% agree, saying getting paid for it is more noble incentive. Yeah, we talk about good incentives. That's a good incentive. It fucking works. Be honest about it.
Yeah, but again, Texas, just fucking build out reliable baseload. Like,
That
and ideally, you just build 10 nuclear power plants. You have an insane amount of capacity, orders of magnitude over what you would ever potentially need, and you just have miners using that excess capacity. And as your industry grows, they get priced out as more use cases on your grid come to market.
just don't build them too quickly, because I don't want Texas to have all the hash.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's big time. Texas, love Texas, live in Texas. Yeah, it's a big concern moving forward. Like, does it amass an insane amount of hash rate? With that being said, I am bullish on other parts of the country amassing material amounts of hash rate as well that will prevent that crazy centralization that people are worried about in Texas. Not only here in the United States, I've been made privy of a lot of considerable operations that are being spun up in places like Argentina, Paraguay, up in the Nordic states. There's a lot of mining. Africa, there's going to be a big push in Africa this decade to get a bunch of mining.
There's like no hash in Africa right now. There's going to be a lot of hash in Africa soon.
Yeah. So that's good. But yeah, beware. That wasn't on the list. Thank you for bringing that up. Yeah, it's interesting. This market's developing, the Bitcoin mining market, and the way it operates within our electricity grids and off grid. So it's just fascinating to see more data coming to light about how this industry is interacting with the energy industry. It's obviously, freaks know I've been falling down the mining rabbit hole pretty hard the last few years. It's such a never ending. You want to talk about like a sub rabbit hole within Bitcoin mining is one that I feel like I could fall down forever. Last but not least, what I wanted to use the clickbait headline was the fact that there's a potential Zerg rush from the IRS coming if this Manchin and Schumer bill gets passed. It's a funding bill. I forget exactly what the name of it is, but it would provide $80 billion in new funding for the IRS, which would produce 87,000.
Really?
Yeah, 87,000 new agents, 1.2 million. they're in the
Why don't
bill.
we
It
just
says, all
pay
right,
ourselves the $80 billion instead of
I think
spending
this may be
$80 billion?
I think this may be the curb inflation bill, which is just printing a bunch of money and then giving it to the IRS. And their way to curb inflation is to make sure that the government is getting as many tax dollars as possible to put out of the market. 87,000 new agents would be spun up. 1.2 million, like they would say, all right, now that we have all these agents, we're going to go and do 1.2 million new audits and produce 800,000 new tax liens. And if you understand how the IRS operates, a lot of people will see this and be like, yes, they're going to go get the rich and corporations, but really this is an attack on the middle class. You're going to have IRS agents going into small businesses and looking over the shoulder of these small business owners and saying, oh, are you dealing in cash? Are you reporting that cash? Are you paying all your taxes? So yeah, Zerd
That's
rush from the
fucked up.
IRS.
$80 billion. $80 billion. They gotta recoup the $80 billion first before it's actually even worth it.
Yeah.
That's a lot of money to recoup. Okay, freaks. I know it's a bear market. I know you guys are all trying to stay humble and stack sats out there. There are 87,000 new potential jobs for you available. Go out and work for the IRS, freaks.
If not you, then who?
If we could get like 15,000 freaks to work for the IRS, I would count that as a massive win.
Yes, we need at least 15,000 fifth column actors taking some of these jobs,
and then just auto stack with your salary, a double hit.
But this is
there's $80 billion up for grabs.
On a more stay humble and stack IRS jobs, freaks. But on a more serious note, I mean, I think this is indicative of like late stage empire shit. Like this is, if you go back, read the history of Rome, like what happened towards the end of the Roman Empire, the Roman Republic, and the senators who made up that government freaked out, and they hired a shit ton of tax collectors and got really strict on tax collection because their hyperinflation was going crazy, and it's happening here in America in 2022. The government has completely lost control of the system. They've completely lost the respect of people. If you look at any poll in terms of people's confidence in the government, they're at all-time lows. Confidence in government's at all-time lows. Confidence in media is at all-time lows. Confidence in corporations is at all-time lows. You have a society here in the United States specifically that is losing confidence in mass in all of our institutions, whether it be government, private sector, public sector, the corporation side, media side. People are just losing faith in mass in these institutions. And as these institutions lose the confidence of the people, they lose power over the people. When they lose power, they try to clamp down, double, triple, quadruple down. And that's exactly what this Manchin-Schumer bill, if passed, is indicative of, is the fact that they're losing control of the narrative and of the people's confidence in their ability to actually facilitate the federal government. And the reaction is not to show some introspection and say, hey, where have we gone wrong? Maybe the government has gotten a bit too big. Maybe we have become too much of a nanny state. They decide to go the complete opposite direction and say, all right, let's fucking hire an army of IRS agents to go harass our citizens. And if they're not going to have confidence in us, we'll beat them with a stick and make sure that they're paying us at the very least.
Nailed it.
Yeah. We got to end it on a good note, though.
What good note do you want to end it on?
We got Boostagrams.
Oh, I have a good note. Yeah, we should. We need to cover the Boostagrams. New Seedtool launched by Bitcoin Q&A and Super Fat Arrow. Forgot to put that on the list. So if you're using Seedtool to learn about seeds or to audit your seeds, reminder as always not to interact with it on a computer that's connected to the internet. You want to download it, use it offline. But new update, v2.0.1.
Beware, freaks. Boostagrams, top 4 from last week's RIP. From @Carlos, 42,069 sats. Nice. Thanks for all the signal on this Bitcoin
Nice.
topic. Forget all the haters just trying to knock it. They'll try to FUD and attack. We just stay humble, stack sats. No shitcoins, crypto, Web3, or come rocket. It was a wrap. Cheers. Cheers from Jersey.
Cheers, freak. Appreciate the support.
Ape Myth Randier just got this in 8 minutes ago. 8,070 sats. Only one 5-figure sat boost this week. Pick it up, freaks. Hopefully got this boost in time. Keep ripping, guys. I look forward to these almost as much as any Citadel Dispatch episode. Damn, coming on here. Citadel Dispatch, high quality. I mean, I can't knock it. Citadel Dispatch it's a very high quality podcast.
Well, appreciate the double love, freak.
Again, Ape Myth Randier at BTC Nim, 8,069 sats. Nice. Okay. My never another boost under 50K prediction was crap. I learned it from you, Dad, in parentheses, Odell. Also, I'm really enjoying the new Alt Macro podcast titled They Don't Give a Fuck About You, hosted by Marty Fedhawk Jones. I think it was wise to separate that content from the RHR feed. Yes, the They Don't Give a Fuck About You podcast is doing numbers. So I started that. It's very underground. You can't even find it on your podcasting apps. Last but not least,
wait. I love it. So that was the guy who said we're never going under 50,000 sat boost.
Yeah, and then
how much was this boost? 8,069.
69. Yeah.
Yeah. So I love that he was confident enough in his new prediction that he was way under 50,000 sats.
At BTC Nim. Thank you for the
Nailed
boost. Even if it is
Appreciate you.
more than 50,000 sats. At letter 6173, God bless Bitcoiners looking to make a better world. So that's the top 4. I'm going to cheat.
God bless.
Because the next one from Appon, 6969 sats. Big Marty Jones fan here. Thank you, Bon.
Biased. You're gonna make me pull up the boosts in the future so I can say my biased ones.
Yeah.
Freaks, we appreciate the support, whether that's through shoutouts, whether that's through retweets, likes, subscribes, auto downloads on your podcast app help. We appreciate you all.
Yeah.
YouTube subscribers, Twitch subscribers, Rumble subscribers, Bitcoin TV subscribers, Boostagrams.
Everything helps. Every little bit. Yeah, if you haven't rated...
Sending us extremely large flags in the mail.
Yes.
Thanks, Hank.
If you haven't rated or reviewed Rabbit Hole Recap and subscribed, obviously we created a separate stream for this show a couple months ago. If you haven't done that yet, if you'd be so kind to go subscribe, give us a rating, give us a review. It helps go a long way. If you haven't subscribed to Citadel Dispatch or TFTC, go do that as well. Just additional content on Bitcoin and everything going on in the world.
As easy as searching it in your favorite podcast app.
Yes. MJ saying Marty needs to have that web girl on again. She was a conspiracy podcaster. Can't remember her full name. It's Whitney Webb. I've actually been talking to Whitney just as a friend behind the scenes. So maybe, if you guys want to hear a Whitney Webb episode, I'll ping her and see if she wants to come on. I know she's currently writing a book. Is looking to get that published next month. So I think after she publishes that book, we'll probably have a catch-up conversation with Whitney.
Awesome.
Yeah. That's all we got. The IRS is coming to harass you. Maybe we're going to start talking to our IRS agent on the show.
Maybe our IRS agent will be one of the new freaks that are applying for a job.
Yeah, just for our sake, freak. You got to go get one of that. Well, it is funny. Like, do you think they could actually hire 87,000 agents?
I don't know. If they have $80 billion to spend and for freaks looking for a job,
But like, who becomes an IRS agent? That's the question. Like, are there 87,000 sociopathic people who just hate their neighbors?
I don't think you have to be a sociopath to become an IRS agent. I think you just need a job and just don't count on your pension because the government will probably put your pension in the next Celsius. So,
yes,
yield
farming.
Assume
yield
you
farming
won't
is
get
coming
that.
to your pension fund.
Yeah, assume you will not get that.
Yeah. Can't wait to shitpost live and in person during RHR at BlackRock Boom. Neither can we. It's in a few weeks, freaks, in Austin, Texas.
I think it's sold out, right? It's not even worth the show.
I believe it may be. If not, get your ticket quick.
BitBlockBoom.com.
Yeah. Yeah, IRS can't even hire enough people to process the paper returns.
Yeah, so we're doing a live show. We're going to do a live show in Austin for BitBlock Boom at the end of this month. And then the beginning of next month, we will be doing a live show in Riga, Latvia at Baltic Honey Badger. Both are fantastic conferences. Consider attending.
Maybe this is the business discussion on air that we can have. Since BitBlock Boom is a Saturday, Sunday, we usually record after the second or first day of the conference and then post it that next week. Since you're coming to town early for the beefsteak, should we do like a proper RHR in person in the studio on Thursday before the conference, and then just have bonus content from the conference as well? Just do pure Q&A.
What times with the beefsteaks on Thursday?
No, beefsteaks on Wednesday, I believe.
That works for me. We can iron it out off air. I haven't booked any flights or anything, but I will definitely be there for the beefsteak.
All right. That was Business on Air. That was Rabbit Hole Recap. Good rip. Be aware of the CIA assets, the IRS agents, the institutions with access to the Fed out there. Very interesting developments in this bear market this last week. Sorry that I had a neighbor mowing the lawn there. That's on me. I'm gonna go knock up on every door down this block and let them know Thursdays between the hours of 2 and 4:30. You all need to shut the fuck up. I'm even gonna go talk to the birds as well. I'll have them in cages next week.
Don't put the birds in cages. Just let them speak their message to all of us. Anyway, Marty, this was a pleasure. Freaks, it was a pleasure. Car, always a pleasure. Stay humble, stack sets.
Peace and love.